back to my story. When I started my laser engraving company, I was like, you know what? I've got this great idea. Laser engravers, they're just, they've been around for 15 years
Uh-huh.
now or so as like an industry like that people are using. They're starting to get more popular.
Uh-huh. Has it only
Um,
been around that long?
like
Like personal
as like
wise?
real like something that the average consumer could buy, I'd say about 15 years.
Wow.
But it was still like you're still up at like
Yeah.
$20,000.
Right.
I'd say the Chinese stuff more like
Mm-hmm.
10, 11 years. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. But so I got this ingenious idea, and I started researching all these different companies that were out there doing laser engraving and cutting
Mm-hmm.
boards and signs and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally gonna do this. And
Mm-hmm.
so I jumped into it. Found a company called Full Spectrum Laser, FS Laser. They're in Nevada, Las Vegas, and I bought their highest end model that they had at the time.
Wow, look at
And
you.
well, because you know me, I go big or go home. I don't do something just
Yeah,
half. Like
that's
I,
awesome.
I looked at it and I said, you know what? I want something that's industrial, that's big enough that I can do big items or small items, and I can do mass production. And so I didn't want to buy a small laser that I knew I'd have to upgrade eventually. So,
Mm-hmm.
which I ended up upgrading anyways. And but for me, it was I wish on manufacturing that I would have done a little bit more research with e-commerce and online business because I love making stuff and I
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't change that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wish that I would have known more about T-shirts. I wish I would have known more about
Print on demand.
print on demand in general.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have changed me buying a machine
Mm-hmm.
because my experiences with production and stuff like that, that's just
Mm-hmm.
what I love, right? But it definitely would have given me some more tools to be able to expand my business faster,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have really helped me in a lot of different aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to have unique products and use
Mm-hmm.
those products and even think more outside of the box and using other people's infrastructure and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's the my first big takeaway is that I just jumped like I this is how dumb I was. I went and bought my laser and I set it up in my garage, in my dad's garage,
Uh-huh.
and I went to Home Depot and bought a bunch of like granite tiles and stuff, and I was like, dude, this is gonna be so easy.
Uh-huh.
And I got on Word. That's how
Yeah.
dumb I am. Like, I got on Word and took like a picture of like an LDS temple,
Uh-huh.
and I threw that on there. And so like an LDS temple is kind of like a cathedral for the
Uh-huh.
Catholic Church, but for the Latter Day Saints. And so I threw that onto a Word
Uh-huh.
document, and then I threw that onto the laser, and it just came out just like white, like it just like the way the laser engraves. And so like I was just like, oh my gosh,
Uh-huh.
this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. And because of that learning
Mm-hmm.
curve, I wasted a lot of money. I wasted a
Mm-hmm.
lot of wood. I mean, I went out because I started doing that and I finally got the tiles to work, right? I figured out
Mm-hmm.
how the design side worked. Then I was like, okay, so now I've got an actual feasible product. And then I was like, oh crap, how do
Mm-hmm.
I get this in front of somebody's face? So I had to
Mm-hmm.
go buy a camera. I had, all this equipment that I bought, lights and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff to learn how to do photography, so I could take
Mm-hmm.
pictures and it was just insane, right? Like
Yeah.
just all this stuff. And then
See, I'm too lazy to do all that stuff.
once I got the photography done, I realized I threw it on Facebook and I
Uh-huh.
got like 30 sales off of this one tile
Whoa,
design.
really?
Yeah, 30 sales in like an hour.
Like on your personal Facebook?
It was
Or?
a Facebook group in Tooele. It's because I was living
Oh.
in Tooele at the time, which
Uh-huh.
is right across from Salt Lake, right across the mountains.
Uh-huh.
And they had a Facebook group that's like mom Facebook group for like moms
What were
making
you doing in
products.
there?
I know, right? And it was like moms. It was like this mom group where like all these moms would make like
They're like, who's this shady guy?
they had crickets
in
and
here?
stuff, And
Oh,
so
crickets.
yeah, like the crick
That's how dumb
cuts
I
or
am.
whatever, yeah. And so they were cutting like vinyl and
Mhm.
stuff and putting it on wood and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can throw my product in there. And so I threw it in there and I sold
Yeah.
30 of this design like immediately.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my
How'd you
gosh.
feel, man?
It was awesome.
Did
It
it
was
give you
really
like
cool.
a little confidence boost?
Yeah, it was cool. And then right after that, it died, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh. Then I started, and I don't recommend anyone doing this.
Uh-oh. Did you join
Um,
another mom group?
No, I was working at a company. I was working at a company in Salt Lake, and
We should have an advisory on this, Lindy. Like, don't try this at home underneath the video.
this is actually what got
No,
me
just
into
kidding.
woodworking. So I I launched that product. I sold 30 of them,
Uh-huh.
and then it died off, and I couldn't sell any more. I was just like, what the heck, you know? And so I was like,
Where's the millions I was gonna make?
yeah, where's the billions of dollars I'm still in my
Right?
garage? Um, but then it never really took off, and so
Uh-huh.
I ended up learning how to do woodworking because I was like, well, I can't just do these square 12-inch by 12-inch tiles. I've got to figure out other things, you know. And I did find the wood tiles that
Uh-huh.
they look like wood, and I was
Uh-huh.
engraving on those for a
Oh.
while. But then I was like, I should probably just learn how to make signs. So
Yeah.
I went out and learned how to make signs, and then I started selling NFL signs at my
Uh-oh.
job. Well, it was like so.
Hey, NFL, if you're listening to
Yeah.
this, do not sue us.
Yeah,
He
well-
doesn't. He doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't do it anymore, you know, and I didn't make that much, but like the guy in the warehouse was like, "Wait, you got a laser engraver? I want such and such sign." And so I just was like, it was just word of mouth. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I was out there like making NFL signs to
Yeah.
sell them, and it's just he was like, "This is my team. I want you to do this team." And so I did it, and then I brought it in and gave it to him, and then he showed it to all the other guys in the warehouse, and they're like, "I want one for my mother-in-law. I want one for this." And then I started selling them, and it did really well. And then I kind of opened up an Etsy store, but I look back on it and how much time it consumed. Like, don't get me wrong now, like I feel like I have such a talent with understanding that and understanding the whole production side of things that it feels like it's something that I can always do, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's a skill.
yeah, it's a skill that
Yeah.
I've learned that I've got in my bag that I can
Yeah.
always use, you know, and I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. I was very much, you know, and when we get into the POD side of things, we'll talk a little bit about the differences, you know, like I liked the control that I had of making
Mhm.
sure that like when I did a product
Mm-hmm.
and I gave that to a person, I was there from the beginning of the product to the end of the product.
Mhm.
I literally went and picked out that piece of wood for that person. I went to our
Mhm.
lumber yard, picked out the mahogany or the walnut or
Mhm.
whatever type of wood that I was buying. I hand cut it, I milled it, you know, I ran it on my jointer, my planer,
Mhm.
all these woodworking tools, ran it through the table saw to cut it down to size, the miter saw,
Mhm.
made it perfect, routed
Mhm.
the edges,
Wow.
sanded it by hand. But I was up doing that till like 3 in the morning every night, you know.
I was just gonna say
But
that
it
sounds
felt
exhausting.
but it is. But it felt so good.
Yeah.
It was like therapeutic, right? It's like
Uh-huh.
remember when we painted those little minifigures?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like therapeutic. It's
Uh-huh.
like doing something that's kind of, you know, that you can just throw headphones in and you just go to town at
Yeah.
it, and then you create something, and then you take it to that person. You see their eyes light up when it's
Mhm.
exactly what they were thinking it was going to be. you
No,
know?
that is cool.
So, but it was hard. Like,
Yeah.
and I know we're on the things that I would
No,
have
no,
done
no,
differently,
you-
right? There's things that I really enjoyed
But you
about
enjoyed
it.
the process.
I
of
enjoyed
it.
the process, but what I didn't enjoy is the loss of time that I had.
So maybe doing more research into the business, ecom.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I was learning at the time because it was my first business, right?
Yeah.
Well, like my first real
Yeah.
legit business.
Mhm.
And there's a lot that I was learning at that time, right? Of how to run a business, how to create a product and manage that product and manage orders and things like that, you know? But it was a lot for my wife and it was a lot for my children and it was just a lot on everybody, you know? Like I remember me and my wife had this huge discussion because I hadn't, even though I was making sales, I was still trying to, you know, and I wasn't having to pay it off because I paid cash for my machine and all the equipment that I bought. But it was like, it was always sucking away from our financials. It was never bringing into our financials.
It was more of a hobby then.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say it was a hobby. It was just because like a hobby is where you can at least somewhat afford it,
Yeah.
right? It was like,
Yeah.
like I want to do this because of what it was an investment, right? It was
Yeah.
what I could do for the future and what I thought it could do. But it didn't mean that that's what it was actually doing. And it was really hard on my wife. We had a conversation once where she was like, I think you should just sell it. Sell the laser, sell everything. You know, like I couldn't sell the company, it wasn't making money, right? But it was like sell all of the equipment that are worth money,
Yeah.
and then we just move on, and you just go do a 9 to 5 like everybody else, you know.
Yeah.
And I was doing that as well.
Yeah,
know?
you were doing both.
Yeah,
right?
I was working. You know, sometimes I'd work the night shift or the morning shift,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the day or the week or what we needed to do at my job. I was in production there as
Yeah.
a quality auditor, and I'd get home, and the first thing I do when I get home is either mow the lawn and then go to work or whatever. You know, like I never really got time with my family. We didn't get vacations. I wasn't going on 3-week vacations. I wasn't able to do those types of things, and it was really hard on mine and my wife's relationship at first.
Oh, I bet.
You know, and
Yeah.
we kind of had a talk, and it was like, I remember
It's
somebody
me or the
said
laser.
no. But somebody said it this way. It was like, when you marry an entrepreneur,
Uh-huh.
you don't just marry them; you marry them and their
Yeah,
business. Like
yeah,
there's
it's
it's
true,
part of the
man.
relationship, and I think that's kind of what came down on our conversation was like, even if I quit this business on laser
Uh-huh.
engraving, I have this entrepreneur mindset.
Uh-huh.
I would just find something
Yeah.
else, and but it was hard. It was really hard doing it that way, and but I
Mhm.
did like it, right?
Mhm.
I do like
It was fun
producing, and
for you,
so
yeah.
it was fun, but it was very time consuming. And so that's what I would change, is trying to streamline my manufacturing
Mhm.
to have that balance. And I would very much have loved to understand POD, because I think
Mhm.
it would have created a better balance for me, to where I wouldn't have
Yeah.
felt so tied down to the machinery that I had, to where
Uh-huh.
I could have done it more on a fun level rather than
Yeah.
a drastic, I've got to
Mhm.
get through this level,
Mhm.
So,
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Those are good insights. I think, anytime you can start a new business, just understanding what's going to go into
the
it,
nuances
the
of it.
nuances, but also more efficient ways of doing things is always going to help you out. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, could you do me a huge favor and like this video? Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got tons of great content there. And if you want to connect with us on social media, check out the links in the description, and we look forward to seeing you there.